So I'm in Perivale, where they filmed the final episode of the final season of Classic Who, Survival, Part 3. And Part 1 and 2, but let's forget about that. So, you may be thinking, it's the crown jewel of Season 26, isn't it? I mean, it was kind of difficult, because they're all so amazing. But let's be real, it's the Curse of Fenric. Bamboozled you! Yeah! Anyway, let's get back to my room where I'll discuss it further. It's season 26, we're at the end of the classic run of Doctor Who, and it ends on a bang. It ends on possibly the best season of the entire show. I don't think there's a single stinker. I think, if anything, they should all be crown jewels, but I'm only going to talk about one thing. And as much as I do want to talk about Survival and how much I love it, everything that's been talked about Survival bigged up has been said, so realistically, I might as well talk about my second favourite Doctor Who story of all time, The Curse of Fenric. You may be thinking logic still applies, but I'm electing to try and talk about it anyway, because you don't often hear people say, oh, this is my second favourite story of all time, and the only reason why I say second is because we've already talked about City of Death. We've not, because I already talked about it years ago, and I stand by that video. But I've not had the opportunity to talk about The Curse of Fenric, a story about faith. I talked about Ace's faith in the Doctor last time, and this story kind of delves deeper into that to some extent. This season, actually. Something that I really like about this season is that the mission statement was, let's make it about Ace. Because in a way, season 25 was more about the Doctor, but that's why you had Ace get a friend who was very much like her in Battlefield. Instead of delving into the Doctor's home on Gallifrey, they delve into this one home Ace burned down due to her own personal trauma in her own life in Ghostlight. You've got her faith in the Doctor be tested, as well as her feelings towards family and faith generally in The Curse of Fenric, and she goes back home to Perivale in Survival to drop in to see her old friends, and that's how they get embroiled in that story. I also like how, in a sense, the tone matches the Doctor's character, who drops the facade of being a clown a bit more in this season. Now, that's not to say he's never clownish at all, it's just a bit more rare. We tend to see him focused, and honestly, that very subtle costume change of him just wearing a darker coat also emphasizes this, as many people have said before. The Curse of Fenric kind of puts Ace's entire character into perspective, considering we know she's had an iffy relationship with her mother, just not a fun home life. And that's kind of put into question, considering the baby she meets is that of her own mother. Or rather, the baby is her mother. Honestly, setting it in the Second World War is a stroke of genius as well, because it's just before the Cold War happens. Introducing the communist Russians makes a lot of sense. There's also everything going on in the war, but this is taking a step back, taking a step aside, because it's not about war. War plays into the theme of faith in The Curse of Fenric, and that theme of faith is the main reason I love it. The theme of faith is explored beautifully whenever it can be, and the story doesn't stop. It just doesn't really stop. Everything either develops it or enriches the theme. Reverend Wainwright is probably my favourite side character of the era, because he perfectly represents what this theme is trying to go for. Because he is someone of faith who is starting to lose it due to this war, who is conscious of the fact that there are innocent people on both sides of the war being killed, And you cannot just say, oh, it's fine, we're doing the God's work, if you're killing innocent people. So although his faith is strong, it's waning. Wainwright. Perfect name. It also makes his death ever more tragic because he died due to his lack of faith. Meanwhile, the vampires that killed him were perfectly warded away by communism. Just the concept of communism, even the Doctor's faith is something called into. The thing is, people say what the Doctor did to Ace was horrid, and they'd be right. Emotionally manipulating her into believing he didn't care for her one jot after all these years is a gut punch that was morally wrong, even though he was forced into that situation. But his groveling after the fact does appear genuine, especially when you realise what he did to ward off the Haemovores, and that's name his companions just under his breath. And that is canon. I believe it's in a novelization, and it's in the script, and if, like, without the music, that's what he was doing. That's what McCoy was doing. He was saying Susan, Ian, Barbara, Vicky, blah blah blah. He has faith in his friends. Honestly, that's one of the biggest things I love about the Doctor as a character. And realistically, although people all the time talk about how he's almost going against that in the story, in a way, I do feel like it reinforces it. He just had to make a really tough call. This iteration of the character does it a lot. I'm gonna end my discussion on the stories here and round up my feelings about the original run of Doctor Who and the Seventh Doctor era in particular. I am a big fan of how it handles character, and the Seventh Doctor era, particularly season 26, was really when they decided to focus on it a bit more. Character was never usually the focus, but it's done in a very rounded and almost naturalistic way in all 26 of these seasons. That's what I really love about the show as an adult, but it managed to capture the imaginations of so many people, myself included, and everything that this show has done, whether good, whether not so good, whatever, it's magical and the best premise any TV show has ever had. Genuinely one of the most creative things out there, and these characters and these stories that have been told, they mean so much to me. The Seventh Doctor's era in particular does it stylistically in a very interesting way, and in my opinion makes the most interesting, layered and real main protagonists. That's not to say they haven't done successful since, far from it. This run of the show did so well in so many areas. So I guess season 26, even though there's only one story in it that I consider like a crowning jewel, even though they're all so brilliant, the fact that they're all so brilliant is kind of why I've always found season 26 to be my favourite. I feel like I've been pretty comprehensive over the past few videos as to why the Seventh Doctor era is my favourite, and the Seventh Doctor as a character I don't think I've made clear. In a sense, I would say the Second Doctor is the most perfect Doctor. He has everything I would want the character to have, but the Seventh Doctor has more. The Seventh Doctor also embodies these qualities, maybe in his own way, but he also gives a more layered and interesting development of the character as some larger-than-life chess master, but not someone that's cold. He does cling on to his friends just as much as any other Doctor. I love him for that, and that is why he's my favourite iteration of the character. I see a lot of me in Ace, not gonna lie. Ace feels like the kind of friend I'd love to have. She is the perfect balance of what the new series tries to do to make these characters inherently layered and interesting, but executed in a way that the classic series does so well, in my opinion. Every facet of her character, you find something interesting. Surface level, she likes explosions. Deep down, she has a traumatic home life. And from how the Doctor met her to what we see in season 26 is a brilliant journey, and in a way I'm glad it technically never ended. But that's enough waffle from me. What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comments below. And here's the thing. I've ran out of Classic Who, but we all know I can't just go on to the new series. So here's what I'm going to do. The next video, I'm going to cover the Wilderness Years. I'm glad you've enjoyed the first 27 Crown Jewels, because you also did the 5 Doctors separately, covering the first 26 seasons of Doctor Who. 13 more to go, but not 13 more videos. That would be too simple. Ooh, magic Time Lord powers activate! Goodbye!